sap analysis, which is something fairly new. And yeah, he's just such a wealth of knowledge. Biological, he's going to talk about biological amendments, which I touched on. But Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I certainly appreciate you coming out.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, hello, New York!
Hello.
It's good to be here again. How many of you were here 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago when we sang Christmas songs. You guys remember that? Okay. No Christmas songs planned today. Sorry. Anyway, that was a good memory. Back in September, Dennis contacted me and said, there was a short email, Steve, do you use biological amendments and are you familiar with the sap analysis test? And I responded back, yes, I've used the sap analysis some. I'm familiar with it. Emails back, we'd like you to come and talk about that. Really? I was surprised. And so I said, well, you know, I'm not an expert at that like I am Debbie, considered an expert in some other areas. And of course, Dennis said, well, none of us are, but, you know. So I'm here today to talk about this topic, managing biological amendments and sap analysis to maximize crop potential. So how many of you have used some sort of biological amendment? I'm assuming, okay, about half of you did. How many of you have used the SAP test? Okay, so, well, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what it is and so forth, because I do think there's a place for it. Is it a cure-all? No. Do we know how to manage them all? No. We're going to talk about this here, and I do want to give you permission right now to raise your hand or just ask the question. And I will have time for questions at the end, but you can do that in the middle of my presentation. Okay? So I'm giving you permission. If something's not clear, or if you have something to add, you know, feel free to do that. So let's start out with a thought-provoking question and a little audience participation. What destroys biology? Maybe we want to figure this out so we know why we're trying to get more of it. What destroys soil biology? Anybody? Tillage? Yes, my first one as well. Another one.
Too much.
Too much?
Water.
Too much water? Yes. Yeah, when your fields are waterlogged, that hurts biology. And hydrous ammonia? Good answer. Lack of root mass? Yeah. I think I missed one over here. Too much potash?
Too little.
I list this here. Notice there's a key word here. Some chemicals and some fertilizers. I'm not going to be a black and white guy here today in the context of every chemical and every fertilizer kills biology. You know what? You could take a salt shaker of salt and consume it, and you can kill yourself. Or you can sprinkle a little bit on, and it's pleasant, and it's good for you. Same thing with a lot of these stuff we use. So I'm not coming here today as someone who says we have to get off every synthetic thing ever known to man. That's not what I'm saying. But we've used too much of that stuff. And that's why we have to get back to significant less of that stuff and look at the biology. Lack of diversity or monocultures. Huge impact on what is destroying biology. So the results of our collective pest management, I'm going to include myself in there. Chemical fertilizer can make plants lazy in initiating the mycorrhizal, the fungi association with crops. And that's a deep topic. We could spend a whole hour talking. I'm not going to talk about some of the science behind all this. We're farmers here today. Don has a question or a comment.
Just elaborate what the AMF stands for those that might not.
So if I can say this right, I'm not sure we're going to get the first word. Can you say it, the first word, abu something, mycorrhizal fungi? Arbuscular, that's right, I wasn't getting it. Thank you, Don, for coming to my rescue. So pretty much what that is when a plant sends roots down into the soil, in order for the plant to get nutrients, it has root hairs, number one, and number two, it forms an association with fungi in the soil, or mycorrhizal fungi, you could use that word, that fungi lives off the root exudates. See, when a plant takes in sunlight, it also excretes exudates into the soil in order to feed the fungi, and the fungi essentially will say drills holes into the plant roots, and then the fungi is also a conduit to bring nutrients into the roots. Are you with me? Is that a decent explanation, Don? Decent?
Yeah.
Is that a good farmer explanation? So, and this is stuff I never knew about years ago. But once you start understanding it, the plants were designed to function without any help, essentially. But we, in our infinite human wisdom, have decided to help plants, and that's okay. But we've always helped them so much that they don't need the fungi in the soil, and the fungi dies off, and it's not there to help us, then we still need to use more fertilizer all the time. So I know I said a lot there, but that's the premise here, why we need to think about reducing tillage, because tillage destroys that fungi. It's harmful to it. And so we're losing opportunity with what's right under our feet. And I think that's the premise of what we're trying to talk about here. How can we manage in the context of what we know today in agriculture? Because I'm not blaming my grandpa for tilling. I'm not blaming my grandpa for starting to use nitrogen fertilizer. Because that was the thing of the day, right? Back then, that was the future. I'm not blaming him, but now we know that that wasn't the correct path to follow. We got on a detour. And so now we're, I think, getting back to the biology that is in the soil. And who knows what we'll be talking about this meeting 5 and 10 years from now. About some of the things we're doing today. That we thought, you know what, it might not have been so good after all. And I'm perfectly open. I will probably change my talks based on things that we learn. And that's what I love about agriculture. None of us here, I don't care how young you are, you're never going to figure it out, totally. And it's you know, as some people said, this whole biological thing or cover crop thing makes farming fun again. And I'll just say this too. Cover crops, no-till, reduced-till, makes good farmers better and bad farmers worse. Because it's in the management where you get these benefits that we're talking about. Fungi suppress or dies off. We kind of covered this here. Soil is less resilient. That's a big thing. And I love this word, and it's almost getting overused now already, but that's what we're really looking for here. But that's what biology can bring to our soils. So why not? Why not look at the biology, and hence our topic today. Crops less healthy. Don said, and he's right, healthy crops, healthy food. And even though a lot of you probably aren't growing vegetables like Don, but if you're growing grain, eventually that gets into the human system, our human system. Do you know that 70% of the microbes that are in our guts can be identified in the soil? Which is not surprising, because I believe we were made from the soil. If you're following, you know, more of the creation design, makes a lot of sense. So we ought to be thinking about how we're growing our food. And I'm not up here promoting organic, because organic has a set of its problems as well. There is really no ideal system to grow food unless we would all forage for berries and nuts. Right? Think about it. That ain't going to happen. So how can we back from there and say, how can we grow food in an ecological way, biological way, that's healthy food for us? So we've kind of got addicted to chemicals, chemical fertilizer, chemical whatever, the sides that are out there, herbicides, pesticides, insecticides. And again, I'm not saying they're all wrong. I mean, for goodness sake, we all drove here today probably, and we polluted a little bit in the way here. But, oh, by the way, we risked our lives. There's no 100% guarantee you wouldn't have an accident in a tractor trailer and run head on to you. But it was worth the risk to come here. In agriculture, we want to do the best we can with trying to enhance the environment. And again, that's a mindset. I talk about it in my book, and I'll mention that again too. It's about mindsets here. Mimicking nature. That's what we're trying to do. This is a picture in my woods. It wouldn't take long to identify 12 or more species there. Right? What happens when humans leave things alone? If humans would move out of Western New York, what would Western New York look like in 25, 30 years? This. That's the way nature was designed to function. And by the way, looks pretty healthy, doesn't it? No chemicals applied. No fertilizer applied. How can we mimic that? I don't know. But that's what I'm going for. How many of you have ever took a soil test of your woods? Anybody? Anybody ever take a soil test of their woods? Leland, where are you? Haven't you done that? You should. I've done it. You know what's amazing to me? The fertilizer values that we think are good are terrible. See that woods right there? I took a test of that. 29% calcium. You would think nothing would grow. Almost all the values are low in almost the orange, the red lines. But how do we get this? Does anybody know? Anyone want to venture? It's the biology. Oh yeah, the organic matter is 8%. My fields used to be 2.2, and 30 years ago, now they're pushing 6. I've almost tripled in my fields. My woods is 8%. That's my goal. Because I assumed 300 years ago when my land was cleared, that's what it was. It's reached that equilibrium. So my goal personally is 8%. I may never reach that, but that's my goal. The first 2 or 3% are easy. There you get over that, it's a little harder. It's the biology that gives us health. So next summer, when you see your green woods, think about that. Now I'm not saying sometimes insects will sweep through or diseases will sweep through. Right now we have diseases taking out some of our oak trees. That happens. So it's not utopia. It's not ideal. But you get my point? How can we now look at this here and mimic that? You know what the problem is? Nobody's selling soil health. You can't buy soil health in a jug or a bag. Oh, you can buy products that are in that category. And I'm not against exhibitors who might be here selling stuff. I get that. But let's think about it. How can we advance in our way of growing food? Yeah.
Couldn't we argue that if you put fertilizer in that woods, that would be more productive and grow faster, and if you raise the nutrient level of that soil profile, you would get more out of that wood?
Correct. His question was, couldn't you argue that if we would fertilize this, if we would apply things, couldn't we increase the yield? The answer is probably yes. But our mindset is constantly programmed on yield, 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 yield. We get paid for yield, right, Don? And quality. In your sense, in the vegetables, more so quality. If we would be paid for quality, that's what I wish we could be paid for quality. Because I've tested my butternut squash, and it's way above the average for nutrients. And I'm on I am on a quest now to set that in motion. That's the problem with our system, and it's not like I can change anything overnight, or even the people in this room, or even farmers for that matter. But you have a good point, but again, I'm stepping back and saying, you know, what about the quality, and what is the price we pay then? And I'm a capitalist, I'm a free market person and everything, but we have to change the narrative here sometimes. And I think, and after my book came out, I'll get your question here in a second. I started, and my book is written it's not a how to farm type book. It's more for consumers, it's more for farmers, it's inspirational. It's like, hey, this is what your opportunities are. And that's what that's about. And I have now gotten more speaking engagements in non-farming audience. I just did a TEDx talk Sunday night. Wow, that's crazy, man. That was honestly, my heart wasn't pounding today, but Sunday night it wasn't quite pounding, but it ratcheted it up my game, because I was talking to 200 people that was a non-farm audience, and that's where I'm doing more of right now, because if consumers will want a product that's grown somehow, you know, in a more environmentally sustaining way, in their words, that saves the planet. If they want that, we'll grow it as long as we're paid for it, right? No problem. We'll figure it out. And so this is a long-term game, and so that's kind of where I'm at right now. Question?
I just wanted to add to your response to the question about adding fertilizer to the woods.
Yeah.
I think, yes, it may grow more yield, but sometimes that push of growth creates weaknesses which allow pests to more easily enter things that they need.
Yeah, and that is my point. For those of you who didn't hear, he said when you push the yield, you're going to open it up to more pests, probably, and diseases, whatever pests are. Yes, and I, you know, without doing all the research, I'm just trying to make a point, guys. This is where we want to go to in our farming, if we can. We're all at different points, and I'm not suggesting some sort of utopia idealism here. I'm just saying I'm more concerned, I guess, about where you're headed. I'm not concerned so much where you're at today, but where are you headed? Because I think there's opportunities there. Let's move on. Biological amendments, or biology in a jug. Is it snake oil? Or is it the best thing since sliced bread? Probably somewhere in between. But are there snake oil? I'll say it this way. Yes, but just because it's snake oil for someone doesn't mean it's not snake oil for you. Because these biology things, who knows what your soil needs until you try it. Do they work? That's always the question we ask. Now, if you're interested in, do you know how they work? Because you almost have, it's like I say with cover crops. You can, I see King's Acre seeds here today. You can buy some cover crop seeds from King's Acre seed, right? Well, just because you buy a bag of cover crop seeds doesn't make you a cover crop farmer. You have to know how to manage them. Just like you manage your pest crops. When you buy a bag of corn, you know how to manage corn because all you've been doing that forever. It might be generational. You don't even think about it. But if you have to grow rice, you'd have to know how it all works, what varieties, that's all that. That's what I'm saying with the biology stuff. You gotta think about it the same way. How does it work? And have a knowledgeable representative. That's key. I get a lot of people who come in my name, call me, email me, hey Steve, I really want you to try this product. Because they're hoping that when I get in front of guys like you, then I'll talk about it. I've been a recipient of a lot. I'll admit, some of that is nice, some of it's a pain. I'll also say that too, because they keep coming back, They're hoping they score. I've had people give me $3,000 worth of product. Just give it to me. Go ahead, try it. And no real pro, just try it. And that never works. That really is never good. I have had people also to give me product that I did replicated tests on, which is going to lead to that. That's what you got to do. You have to know a little bit. You can do side by sides and everything. That's good. But replicated 3 times, and their product showed a response. It was on my pumpkins. It paid for the product, the value of the product, everything. And the next year, hey, Steve, are you gonna buy it for the whole farm now? No. Well, why not? You saw for yourself right there in your field. Well, I'd like to have 3 years of data. What? Because I've done enough research to know that 1 year is really not enough, especially when you're talking about an expensive product. So, I felt he got a little irritated with me, and I said, tell you what, I'll do the research again, we'll repeat it. I'll buy the product for the whole farm. You tell me where you want the research. I'll only pay you at the end of the season if it worked again. No, we can't do that. Oh, we can't do that. Well, why not? Oh, we can't do that. Okay, forget it. I moved on because I was personally didn't like the approach. And yes, the product may be good, but I'm just giving you examples of things, that I have had to deal with. Is there replicated research? I've had this question. I ask guys come, is there replicated research? Well, no, we just know it works. Oh, there's some farmer, he saw it work better, all that. Okay, that's great, that's helpful. But I would like to see some replicated research that I feel like I can trust. And I would like to know who paid for that research. Pro tip, all you farmers, ask the question or look at the bottom. A lot of times when I see a paper, I go to the bottom of the page, who paid for the research? That could be a clue. Doesn't mean it's bad, but keep that in mind. Whose bias is represented in that research? And I have done thousands of research trials, and I'm telling you, you can state the facts while telling a lie. It happens more than you realize. Just be aware of that. And I'm not trying to spook you to not believe any research. No, I'm asking you to be wise about it. And then, go from there. And so at some point you do have to trust people, but there's nothing better than trying it on your farm if you can do some replicated research. Biological amendments, I say they're only a tool. Maybe I should just say they're a tool, but you have to understand that. It's something you have to be able to work with. I will also say this, in spite of maybe some of the negativity you might hear from me right now, I do believe it is the future. We're moving in that direction. So I think you should be trying some stuff. But that's the beauty of an organization like this. You guys can talk. You can talk at lunchtime today. Hey, did you try this? You might have a great marketing guy out in the area that's pushing the product. And talk amongst yourselves. Really, that's how you're going to probably have the best information on something like this. Okay, let's talk about the SAP analysis. So some of you have indicated you've used it. Is this the best test we might now have? So I put that question out there. It's a fair question. I've done SAP analysis probably for the last 3 years. I'm not totally committed to it. I think there's something there. But generally how the SAP analysis works, like a tissue test, but instead of grinding up the leaves and testing the leaves for the nutrients, they squeeze out the sap. And they test that. So it's supposed to be, and it does make sense to me, a little bit of a better reading on the current status of the plant. And it's been told to me, and I don't know if my days are right here, but a tissue analysis is kind of like 7 to 10 day ago history. A SAP analysis, 2 to 3 day ago history. So it's a little more current. And if you're growing vegetables, that can be meaningful. Corn, soybeans, maybe not as much. But the cool thing I think is intriguing is when you take a SAP analysis, you take two areas of the plant, the young leaves and the old leaves that may be 4 weeks apart. So if you're taking a corn plant, you take some of the new leaves come out the top, you take some of the old leaves, you identify them as matching, you send them in. And so what they're looking for is the difference there. I'm going to show you a quick chart up here later on. And the best analogy I can give is you guys that grow corn know that when you see the bottom leaves of the corn turning yellow, the nitrogen is being pulled out of those leaves and put into the new growth because the plant's trying to survive. There's not quite enough nitrogen at that moment for the plant. The SAP analysis can identify that sooner than you can see it. That's the value of the SAP analysis. So you need to know how to test, and I just described that. Then you need to know how to interpret the results, and I'm not here to do that today. This is how, because I don't honestly know. I've relied on my local dealer, who's done this many, many, many times, to tell me what does this mean. So there again, if you want to dive into it, again, I'm going to show you the numbers are meaningless unless you know what you're talking about, what the parameters are, and so forth. I'm not going to get into the details of this. I'm just giving you, big picture stuff here today. Before we get to next, are there any questions on how the SAP analysis works? Or those of you who have used it, what do you think of it? Your question here.
When do you sample the plant?
So you can start, like I grow tomatoes in high tunnels. So you can start when it's, I'll just say to cover all plants, probably at least 6 to 8 weeks into its growth after emergence or whatever. Because you want that top and bottom, result. Anyone else here who has used the SAP analysis that wants to comment on it? Has it been helpful? Has it been a waste of time and money? You have to collect twice as many leads. Anybody? Some of you said you used it, okay.
We've been doing it also for about 3 years, and I haven't seen any dramatic changes in our vegetables, but it definitely, I think it is worth the investment. Also, I've heard recommendations that, the more often you do it, maybe every 2 weeks for the whole season, you can, see more of a change, especially in something that's dynamic like tomatoes and peppers. But we're just trying it out, so we did it twice on our tomatoes and peppers. And we used it on our Honeycrisp apples as well. We
Okay.
saw a dramatic change after we applied foliar nutrient spray based on the SAP analysis results. So we're going to continue using it because it's worth it.
Did you all hear him good enough? I don't want to have to repeat all that. That was a great rendition of what he's doing. Are you generally saying you're going to continue using it? You see it's a tool. Is that generally what I heard you say?
Yes, it's a tool, exactly.
Okay, back here.
So one of the biggest things we use it for in corn is making sure you have nitrogen in the right form, because if the corn's having to convert that nitrogen,
Yes.
it's wasting energy. to do
Yeah.
that. So that's one of the biggest things.
So what he said was manage nitrogen in corn. I'm going to show you an analysis up here. They measure a couple different forms of nitrogen. And that's something I think we've been lacking on, even forget the biological component here. Managing nitrogen, I think we can do a better job just on that alone. Are you guys, what are you paying for the cost? $70, $75 a piece? Is that, okay. One other thing, and again, I'm not sure who you're going through up here, but are those tests still being flown over to Norway?
We start using a lab in Michigan.
So it used to be this technology was only available in I think Netherlands, I guess, not Norway, Netherlands, I believe. And I did hear, now that you say it, there was a lab in Michigan. That's better. See, that was a problem because the Netherlands, at best is a day, 2 days away. Air freight and everything, and a cost associated with it. So there's a lab in Michigan. Now that's good. Okay, so other experiences with the SAP analysis. Bad experiences.
What's the name of the lab?
What's the name of the lab? You speak it up.
Nova Control.
Pardon me?
Or actually, yeah, look it up.
He's looking it up.
I actually had on my presentation this afternoon.
Oh, he's going to talk about it this afternoon. Or he will talk about it. Awesome. Let's go on here. Let's talk more now. Let's go back up to the biological amendments. It's a big, there's probably thousands of them out there, really, if you lump them all up. My comment here on top is, do healthy plants really resist diseases and pests? I kind of made that little assumption earlier on. I say yes. Not 100% perfect, but generally so. So, how can biological amendments fit into that? I think they can. Here's another one for you. Are insects and diseases nature's turkey vultures? What do turkey vultures do? What's their role? They eat dead animals. They eat the weak. the dead stuff. Now, if you think about this, is this nature's way of doing away with the weak plants? Is that how disease and pests attack? So I was telling Bob Betts back there, my favorite wine grape grower, because he's better than anyone to know. But anyway, Bob is really on to growing cover crops in his vineyards and everything. Talk to him if you're interested in that. He's becoming an expert in his field. He doesn't think he is, but he is. He's connected with the right people. So, I've been intrigued with this whole concept. And I have been working with some people with some minerals and some microbes. I'll just put that category. And in my high tonal tomatoes, I have been able to not use insecticides and very little fungicides. There's something to be said. Even in my squash, 50 acres of pumpkin squash, no insecticides. That's unheard of, pretty much in our area. We have a lot of pumpkins growing in our area, and people can't believe it. But it's because of, again, I'm not going to credit biological amendments here, but it's my biological fields. Okay? I'm going to challenge us later, why not grow our own biology, right? We're going to get to that. So I think there's something there. So how does this work? How does this work out for a program here? Using the SAP analysis, using biological amendments. Well, if you're really into testing and have time to do that and research and so forth, you can test different amendments. You can test different ones and compare them. Now, it does get a little expensive, but we're talking high-value crops. Probably wouldn't work so much in corn. It may take a couple tests. I'm just saying, this is some ideas that I have. I would say that the SAP analysis could arguably be the most accurate tissue type test. I guess I'm kind of there now with what I've seen. I feel like it has a leg up maybe in traditional tissue tests. I still do traditional soil tissue testing though. And part of it is the expense. I mean, $70, you start adding up, it does start adding up. I'll say that. But I've mentioned this before, a trusted representative, someone that you trust, someone that seems to have a good reputation, and works with other farmers. And again, there are people out there who are, that's who you want to get connected with. And as I've been alluding to, there's nothing better than your own research. I know that not all of us are inclined to do that or even know how to do meaningful research. But if you can, team up with someone to help you. Get a grant. There's opportunities out there that you might want to do. And of course you have to ask the question, is the extra cost worth it? And I would say a hesitant yes right now. That's where I'm at. You have to, how much money do you have to spend on that? I must say every 2 weeks would be ideal. But how valuable is your crop? What are you seeing from it? And it'll probably take you years to really see how this all works out. Okay, here's a sample of a test, and I know you can't see it, so I'm not spending much time on it. I do want to highlight though a couple things. Here's one thing: total sugars. That's the thing we look at, and we're coming across here. This I don't see my chart up there. Okay, in this category here, we have the light green and the dark green line. The one is the young leaves, and the other is the old leaves. So there's a difference there. And I'm not going to interpret this. I'm just showing you what you can see. There's all kinds of different things they test. So I like that. Potassium, calcium, magnesium, sodium. Now go to the next part here. This is what I want to spend a little more time on. Nitrogen. They have NO3, which is a nitrate, the nitrogen in nitrate, total nitrogen. There's 3 different things that they look at here. I was way high off the charts on nitrate and nitrogen. That's actually not good in vegetables. You don't want to be high nitrates. That's bad for your health of your fruit. So this was helpful, I felt. And I didn't argue with it. I thought it seemed great. So this helps us manage the forms of nitrogen you use. And that's going to be different for all of you. And then as you get down through here, chloride, sulfur, phosphorus, silica. Silica or silicon is an important nutrient for health, and Also disease and insect resistance. I see you nodding your head. These are things that we haven't heard much at meetings like this. But I'm telling you, there is something there. If you want to keep powdery mildew, all pumpkins, make sure you get silicate on. It works. So you're fighting disease with a mineral. That's exciting to me. I'm not quite all there yet in all my pumpkins. I've reduced my fungicides. I've done that. But in pumpkins, I haven't figured it out yet how to eliminate them all. I've eliminated insecticides. Feel good about that. Years now. Still working on it. I think it's a mineral. We got to get our minerals. I got to find out what am I missing. So that's just what I want to point out there. And we have down here iron, manganese, zinc, boron, copper. There's a couple more I didn't write. But this is just an example. This is what a SAP analysis is. It's pretty comprehensive. So for your $70, you do get a lot of information. It's not just like 3 different nutrients it's evaluated. Any question on the test itself? All right? Get your other questions ready here because we still have a lot of time and I'm running out of slides because I want to have some dialogue here. So get your questions that you might be wondering. Now I'm going to challenge us. Why not grow our own biology? The biological amendments we've been referencing here, and again, I said there's hundreds of them, thousands if not. That's fine. And maybe it's a bridge to not needing them. Or sometimes I've had even some biological proponents claim that once you spread their product on your soil, it's there, it starts growing, and it replicates itself. I don't know. That could happen. Maybe you don't need that product forever. I don't know. But we can't be killing our biological products or the biology in our soil with all the sides. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, whatever you have out there. So we're going to have to probably change something in our farming operation. And this is, again, a whole day topic probably to talk about this. But again, I'm saying this is where we're headed. I think we would all go there tomorrow if we knew it would pay and it would work. We just still got to figure it out. So if you're going to go down this road, you're going to have to reduce some of the things that kill things. Okay? That's just, you're going to have to reduce that somewhere along the line. How do you do that? Maybe the easiest is to increase diversity with your cash crops. I know it's hard for dairy farmers. I get that. I'm not sure I have an answer for you. But vegetable farmers, most of us can do better with getting cover crops planted the day the harvester leaves the field, whatever it is. And we usually have opportunities in the summer that there's still time to grow stuff yet that fall. So you have to take advantage of it. Maximize every single day to do that. And use mixed species cover crops to kind of get that diversity component in there. That qualifies for mimicking nature. Mixed species cover crop, if we can get it planted in August. I understand limitations, but still, can you grow more small grains? I don't know what the price of wheat's going for. Last year was pretty good. Maybe you get some more wheat deals so you can put some cover crops. These are the little things that some of you can do to help go toward growing your own biology. Of course, reduce soil disturbance and tillage. That was the first thing you guys mentioned. It's the first thing I had up there. That's what destroys biology. So don't need to talk about that. Picture some of my tomatoes that I grow. And this is where I'm spending most of my money, I'll say. And I use some biologicals. But I'm using less. I've done enough testing, and a little bit of an aside, so you know that I grow hemp, CBD hemp. And in 2019, the first year I did it, I tested 6 different fertilizer companies' recommendations. I had people calling me up, driving, "Hey Steve, I hear you're doing some fertilizer tests. You want to try our program? Okay, you give me the product, I'll do it." I had it all mapped out, replicated. I mean, it was almost as good as Cornell would do. And that's a compliment, by the way. Maybe I should say Penn State, then there's no emotions here.
Right.
But it was a good test. And I was kind of bummed because I thought about this on the way up and I didn't have the presentation loaded on this computer. But you know what was interesting is there's 6 trials I did. Now this is on hemp, but I think it's insightful. The most expensive one was below average. And the cheapest one gave me the most yield. You know, fascinating. But you know what was more fascinating to me? When you averaged all 6 of the company's products, and I followed their directions as much as I could, that equaled my control of putting on nothing. Only irrigated with water. The field is 25 years no-till. Intensive cover crops, the last 20 years I would say. Do cover crops pay? Does management pay over time? Absolutely. That was 2019. I didn't do the plot again. Some fertilizer companies weren't too happy with me. I did it for myself, and I put the numbers. I respect everybody. Nobody's name was up front. Okay, I've shown these pictures. I'm just saying, this is my experience. That's my experience. I still use some fertilizer though, on some of my crops. I do, corn. I'll show you this afternoon, you know, what I do in that a little bit more. But I'm just saying, I feel confident now, more confident, in trying to reduce and try to rely on biology that I grow. And yes, I still use some biological products. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm at today. This is what we're after. This is a little Campari type tomato that I grow for Whole Foods. Good quality, healthy fruit. This has had very, very little additional amendments. It has some. I won't go into it all. But anyway, I mentioned my book. So my wife is back there in the corner. If you want to check in with her at lunchtime, $20, you can have a book and give it to someone for Christmas. Again, the book is intended to be inspirational, tells a lot of stories. I've been around the world. Tells a lot of my stories, people I ran into, farms, situations I ran into. We're like everybody else in the world. That's what it boils down to. Our circumstances are different, but the same questions come up all the time. And so it will inspire you to the subtitle is Changing Mindsets in a Changing World. And so that's my little push for the book. And that's the end of my slides here. So I don't know, how much more time we got, Don?
Well, theoretically 15 minutes.
Theoretically 15 minutes, but what I hear him saying is, if we finish a little early, that's okay. Is that what you're saying, Don?
Yeah.
Okay, any questions? Until Don pulls me off. If there's no questions, we'll go on to the next speaker. Go ahead.
I'm curious how you are not having a cucumber beetle problem.
No,